guys, welcome to episode 26 of Sound Pollution. This week I am interviewing the Kentucky Beatniks, which are Jen and Nick. This is a longer and less edited down episode for two reasons. The first one being that Jen of the Kentucky Beatniks also does radio herself and said she wouldn't over edit it. So I'm going to take her advice on that. And two, I had what was supposed to be a simple tooth extraction that ended up being not so simple. And I'm in quite a bit of pain, and talking is sort of painful. There will also probably, due to this, not be a live this Monday as well. Anyway, I think this is a great episode. They just went so smoothly. They were both so professional. They really knew what they were doing, which made it super easy for me to do my job. They share a couple fantastic tracks with us. Please stay for the whole interview. Like I said, I know it's longer, but you're really going to enjoy it. They actually share 3 tracks instead of 2. So without further ado, here are Jen and Nick, the Kentucky Beatniks.
Kentucky Beatniks. You guys, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourselves?
Hi, y'all. My name's Nick Payne, and I'm one half of the Kentucky Beatniks, and I'm really happy to be with y'all today.
Thank you.
I'm blessed to be a part of this duo with Jen Yates, who is an extraordinary drummer. And I am a vocalist and pianist and guitarist and percussionist.
Literally everything.
He does it all.
Yeah. And a songwriter, and we both write songs, and we love doing our own versions of cover songs and things like that as well. So we're just some fun-loving musicians from Louisville, Kentucky. Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jen Yates, and I am the other half of Kentucky Beatniks with Nick Payne. I have spent most of my life playing drums since I was about 2 or 3 years old. So, and I knew Nick for a long time. We were both in the Louisville music scene, and I had gone to many open mics that he had hosted, as well as events, Church on the Rocks with the Troubadours of Divine Bliss. That's how we met. And then, life opened up a path where we could create together, and we tried it, and it was pretty awesome. And we've just been working together ever since.
I love the videos you guys put out. So you just kind of like, we're always both in the music scene and just you cross paths, and that's it.
Exactly. We both have been playing since we were kids. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mostly I did solo stuff. I played in some other people's bands. I had some awesome opportunities through the years to back up people like Tania Sanders and Andrea Davidson and the Troubadours of Divine Bliss, and kind of do cooperative musical things with some awesome folks like that. But when me and Jen kind of decided to strike up our own project, that was something totally different because of the way that we complement one another. I wasn't playing backup for her. She wasn't playing backup for me. We were really, it's a equal duo kind of arrangement where we both get to highlight our talents, and we both get to write and provide vocals and things like that. So yeah, it's really awesome.
I do love that about you guys. It's not like somebody's in the back, somebody's in the front. You're like right there together. And that's really, really, you don't see that a lot. Usually,
right.
Yeah.
There's this guy over here, this guy over here. This is really neat how you do it. How would you describe your sound to somebody who hasn't heard you before?
Basically it's a mash of everything. I'm sure Nick can answer that a lot more better than I can, but it's literally our influences are everywhere, from starting out in churches and gospel stuff to literally hip hop to classical. I mean, everything in between is included in what we do. And I think we pull from all kinds of influences. Nick,
I would say we're kind of like, a hillbilly soul funk. We've got some Americana gospel roots for sure. I grew up playing music in church. And like Jen said, we both have such a rich love for so many different types of genres. I think anytime that you come to one of our shows, it's kind of hard to fit us into a genre.
It is, yeah.
Because we dance around so many different styles of music and different types of things. But one thing that is very consistently running through that is just soul music and playing from the heart and doing it from a place of just really loving the music and wanting to share that love of music with people who are there to experience it along with us.
Yeah, and I want to add to that. I have done a lot of duos in the past with different artists, and being a drummer mainly, which is the one thing I've always done consistently and is what I excel at, is mostly percussion. Mm-hmm. Percussion is usually an accompaniment instrument. Like, I have to be with other people. And it wasn't until very recently that I decided to start doing solo stuff myself. I'd never been a vocalist on anything, but I loved hip hop growing up, and Salt and Pepper, and that whole like Moni Love, and Queen Latifah was putting records out back then, and Little Kim. Like, that was my influence vocally. And then we just, like, Nick is he excels at vocals and all the other instruments that everybody I was around kept telling me to use my vocal more and making me do it on stage. So the one thing I love about working with Nick is that you're right. We are side by side. Usually the drummer's in the back. Yeah. In the 40s and 50s, the drummers were always in the front. It's something that's changed over time. So I was on a mission to kind of bring that back, and being with Nick just made that happen magically on its own. Yeah. So it's really cool.
And despite my station as a vocalist, and I've been singing in front of people since I was 3-4 years old, I still am gripped by this performance anxiety, and there are just times when I get really nervous, or I feel, just anxiety will take over me. And having Jen, we're kind of hand in hand, and we're standing next to each other when we're doing this. So it really fortifies the strength overall of the performance, and it makes me a stronger vocalist. It makes me more capable of doing what I love to do, because she has my back, and she even in her own way, she's not maybe harmonizing with me in a conventional like bluegrass kind of vocal or gospel kind of vocal, but she accents my vocal with her own style, and it's unique, and it doesn't sound like anyone else. So I really enjoy what we create.
So as somebody, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
As somebody with anxiety, I totally understand what you're saying. So having that partner with you is helpful with it. You don't get quite as bad, or do you like catch it? Can you kind of tell when he's starting to get anxious?
Sometimes I can, as we work together more, I can. And I actually was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder from a very young age. So I get it too.
We're all in good
company. We're all in good company. And it's weird when it hits me. It'll hit me when I'm playing to 5 people instead of like thousands. You know what I mean? It's very odd how performance anxiety works. And I haven't figured out the formula. But just like Nick said, I'm not a main vocalist, but I would never be like, hey, I'm a vocalist. But I accent, as you can hear in most of our tracks, Nick in an interesting way. And if he does have performance anxiety, then I can go to electronic hip hop samples and start doing hip hop vocal stuff, mashups, things like that, just to kind of take it away from him and bring it over to me for a minute so he can catch his breath. And I totally get it. Yeah, it's a hard thing to battle, and even people like Adele, I mean, will say that they throw up before they go on stage.
Shirley Simon still does it.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, there's an element of performance anxiety that I've always gotten as well, being a queer artist, and wanting to be authentic in that way. Some of the first songs that I ever wrote, some of my solo material, comes from a queer perspective, and it was shaky ground for me. I was really putting myself out there in a vulnerable way, that, sometimes I would get hired to play a gig at a bar in the Highlands,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the people there are kind of like straight people or frat boys or something like that. And something that my union with Jen has really strengthened me a lot is, having both of us be queer artists,
Mm-hmm.
and we can represent and hold that space for one another and really support one another in that way. And it helps give me a lot of confidence just to be myself, to have her there with me. So
Yeah.
I love
And,
that.
and same for me too. I have been an out artist for quite some time. I mean, I was out for a long time, and then I started to come out vocally in my music to put that out there, and started playing women's music festivals across the country with all these openly queer artists. And so, they would always say this to me. They would always say, "How are you from Kentucky? And you're gay." That's what they would say, and I'd be in LA or something. And they were like, I was so bizarre to them because I was kind of a country hillbilly from Kentucky who was also gay. And they're like, we just don't, they don't think about people being gay in Kentucky, And
they
so,
rarely think about Kentucky.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, they think we're all hillbillies and barefoot and pregnant, you know what I'm saying? But so when I got with Nick, it was really cool because I was like, man, we can really represent queer artistry. We can represent Kentucky. We're totally different.
Yes.
He's a gay man. I'm a gay female. It was just this really cool, magical, special thing. And even when he was talking about it, I got chills when he said queer artist, because we do represent that community. And I'm very proud to do so, and he makes me very comfortable in that sense too.
Yeah. Well, thank God we've made a lot of work, I think, in that part socially, because,
Right.
I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm in my late 30s, and that's how
I'm 40.
42.
Right. And so, like, it doesn't seem like that long ago that you couldn't say that. You couldn't say that
Yeah.
at a gig.
Right. It wasn't that long ago.
You couldn't say that in school. You couldn't, like, it was, especially in this part of America,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. It is a sad but true. The fact that you can, at least I think there's a positive in that. And I'm really grateful that you're out there representing that, because I think we need to see a little bit more of that.
I agree. And I have, sorry. I have always been
over each other.
Yeah, it's okay.
I've always been, once I was out full force, you know what I mean? Right. Like, they didn't want me in the country no more because I was out loud and proud. So, to be able to do that and to be, in that space and be okay, people be okay with it. I mean, I never cared if they were okay with it. They're going to have to be if they want to be in my space. That's how I looked at it. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to say this, and then I'll let Nick give his spiel on it. I did get to play several times with Shelley Wright and Ty Herndon, both of them huge country gay artists that came out and were ridiculed by the Nashville kind of music scene. It's different. It's changed now. But, to see artists like that still have a platform at Prides and stuff like that was a really big step. And I've, had discussions with them about how that felt. And I can't imagine how that would feel, because to me, I've always felt accepted on stage musically, and by all types of people across the, red, blue, black, white, straight, gay, it didn't matter, because I was just being authentic and playing music authentically.
Yeah. I was just adding to what y'all had said, about it sort of being taboo or unacceptable to some extent. And I have, I'm already a ball of nerves, and, I'm like, my heart is totally out on my sleeve when I'm performing, and I'm so vulnerable. I just can't help it. The way that I sing is very much like an opening. It just breaks me open. And, I've walked off stage and had people comment things like, you might find a little more success if you refrained from using specific pronouns in your songs, like things like maybe singing about love and saying he, or, something like that. And I mean, that was a decision that I really did have to make, that, I was like, I don't really care what you think.
Right.
I'm going to sing what is authentic to me. And besides the songs that I write that contain, those types of references, a lot of the songs that I love to cover, and a lot of the musicians and singers that I look up to and who influence me, are female songwriters. So Amy Winehouse, Nina Simone, Dolly Parton, like all over the place. And when I represent those songs, I'd like to sing it the way that they wrote it. I don't have to change it to make it heteronormative so that someone at a straight bar can be comfortable with the pronouns that I'm using. I just want to do it from my heart and do it authentically. And if I'm not singing my own song, then I want to pay a very authentic and rich tribute to the person who wrote the song.
And that's why you're such a good performer. It really is. Because you can tell that.
Yeah, I feel it deep in my soul.
Yeah, I was going to say, and too, I feel like, the vocalist, the one that's, even though we're side by side a lot of times, the vocalist is so exposed to the audience, you know what I mean? Where I'm behind a drum set, so I'm kind of encased, and I feel like it's a little bit of a hidden aspect for me, even though I'm, being seen. But the vocalist, for some reason, always, man, when you're authentic like Nick is, and you're singing from your heart and pouring it out in front of people, I mean, you're so vulnerable. You have to be, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're right there you're exposing it all. So it's pretty magical to see. And I love playing with Nick and seeing him do that,
There was I don't remember, it was a video I saw, and you guys went into a Whitney Houston song, and I apologize. I've been on Benadryl for like a week.
It's okay.
So like names, and please bear with me. I'm not usually this stupid. I don't remember which one it was, but like it was just really beautiful. And at first I was like, is that Whitney? And then I was like, oh yeah, it's Whitney. And then Jen jumped in with some drums, and I was like, oh, I cannot wait for Corona to be
over. Right. Thanks. I will say one thing that I absolutely love about playing with Nick is the fact that, and I've played with so many different people, we both have, over the years, in different types of bands and lots of different cover bands and different original, and both being an original artist, is that he never will ever cover a song exactly the way it is.
No,
we
it
always
took me a split second, and then I was like, ooh.
And I guarantee that was probably I Want to Dance with Somebody, because that song is just a song you can play for any crowd in any room. It always works. It always makes people want to sing with you. They want to dance with you. There's something just magical about Whitney in that song. But again, back to another reason I love to play with Nick is that, we might be in the middle of some Janelle Monáe song, and he goes into some kind of shaman chant, Sanskrit, and then goes into some sort of, spiritual Holy Ghost movement type of something. And then we'll end it with some Lil Kim or whoever. It's just like, you just never know where we're going to go. And it's so different. And I have always craved that when I'm looking to work with other people. I've been in so many groups that had to play it exactly like, and I was never that person. Even in musical theater, when I had a score in front of me, I always worked with musical directors that would let me go off that score a little bit and trust me, to not play it exactly the same, just like was written. And I thrive in that original kind of feel, even if you're doing a cover. Doing it your own way. There's
a real beauty, and I have a lot of admiration for people who can play things by the book, classical artists and people who are able to emulate the original arrangement and to create a song in such a way that it's really mirroring precisely what was written by the original artist. But I'm an untrained musician. I grew up just playing by ear on the piano. I taught myself to play piano. You know, I say that lightly. I taught myself to play piano and guitar, but I had this blessing of being surrounded by people in church, you know, other musicians who would show me little things that I would soak up. But my point being, I don't see myself as someone who's particularly capable of performing something exactly the way it's written, even if I have like the sheet music or the score. When it comes out of me, it's going to have my own nuances. And a lot of that comes from, you know, the way that I learned to play music is my own way. So the song is going to come out in my own way. And generally that's more authentic. I feel it more.
100%.
It taps into my spirit and opens my heart a little more when I'm doing it from, you know, my own source.
Yeah, and that's where the magic lies. I mean, you know, even if we're watching like American Idol or The Voice today, we don't want someone to mimic Adele. We want them to sing Adele in their own way, in their own unique way. We were always craving to find that unique artistry. And I will say, from being someone who's been very trained in music and can read books and, you know, and scores and stuff like that, I crave to work with the original artists who are the true artists that pull from creativity side. And there seems to be a really interesting dynamic that I love to talk about. That is, I've worked with super trained people by the book, and like 90% of them could never sit down and write a song and be original and find creativity in their work. But the ones like Nick and like Beverly McClellan, who I worked with, and the true original artists who grew up, most of all of them grew up, had no training, sat behind a piano, got creative, and they're brilliant. You know, that's where the magic lies. It's just that creative. I would much rather find an artist in that creative realm that was not trained than to work with people who were trained that had no artistry about them or creativeness. It's a really interesting dynamic.
It is. And since we're talking about how trained you are and the people that you've worked with, you're in a book, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on the cover of the first book ever written on women drum set players alongside my idols, Sheila E., Viola Smith, Blackman Santana, who drummed for Lenny Kravitz and is married to Santana. Allison Miller's on there, Debbie Peterson, the founder of the Bangles. And I've met most all of them. I didn't get to meet Viola, but by the way, Viola, who the book was mainly written about, was 107 last year, and she died in October, and she died holding that book in her arms.
No shit. Oh, yeah, no shit. Chills.
I got chills too, and I got to meet Sheila E. as well, and she autographed my book, who I grew up like watching. So it's been a very magical thing. That book is written by a lady named Angela Smith, and of Austin, Texas, and she found me online teaching autistic kids, saw my YouTube work, wanted to know if I'd answer some questions and send in a bio, which I did, and a photo. And then I had no idea.
You're like,
I was going to be chosen. No, I saw Sheila E. posted on Facebook. That's how I saw it.
No.
Yeah.
Dying over here.
Great.
Dying.
Yeah. So was I. I still am. Yeah.
And
so anyway,
I got to see Lenny Kravitz play, and I got to see his drummer do like
the female.
Yes.
Yeah, that's her, Cindy Blackman Santana. She's
did like
married
a 10-minute drum solo that I am not going to lie to you was the most magical thing I've ever seen. And he is an amazing performer, by the way. And he
I got cold chills too.
He stepped all the way to the side of the stage and was just like, do you?
When I was a kid, I saw him come out with Are You Gonna Go My Way? And she had that big old fro. And I was like, who is this lady? And then I'm come find out I'm on a book with her. And by the way, she just married Santana and tours with him now. So she's doing quite all right. And she is a badass. Cindy Blackman Santana.
A badass.
Yeah, get that book on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to like drop that in the description.
Thanks.
Yes, but I was texting, I'm going to edit this out. I was texting Kelly earlier and I was like, dude, I don't think I should Google people before I interview them.
It's hilarious.
Like, why? And I was like, because I am suddenly really fucking nervous.
Dude, can I just tell you something real quick? There's been so many times where I got to work with somebody who I was like, I don't know who they were. I didn't know who Julie Wolf was, and she hired me, and I'm working with her, and we're already in like 3 deep rehearsals for this show that's going to last for 3 months. And I go Google her, and I'm like, she toured with Donnie DeFranco and played on almost every record, Little Plastic Castles, and all of them. Went on to tour with the Indigo Girls, produces Carole King. I'm like, you know what I mean? I freaked out after I Googled her, but it was like way after that I even had a clue who she was.
Were you
Vicky Randall was his name. Yeah, I was like, well, I was glad I Googled her because I'm like, oh, now I should take her a little bit more seriously, you know? But you know, it was just crazy. That's happened several times.
I wonder if she like later was like, she was acting weird. I think she Googled me. I think she figured it out.
Maybe. You know, Julie's a Gemini, so she's an air sign, so I doubt she even thought about that. But Vicky Randall probably. Vicky was another when I was on stage playing with her, and I was like, this chick just plays everything. She's just a badass. And I go back in my tent at Michigan Women's Music Festival. And I was like, I'm going to look her up. Oh, she's on Whitney's I Want to Dance with Somebody on backing vocals. She toured with Whitney, Quincy Jones, Mavis Staples, Lionel Richie. I mean, she's on like all of the Aretha Franklin's, Who's Zooming Who, Pink Cadillac. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm on stage with this girl and I'm playing drums. And it was just crazy. Yeah, I think she realized after that I'd Googled her for sure.
I was like, I'm gonna have to stop doing that, but I don't want to stop doing that because I want to know who the hell I'm talking to. That's so funny. Yeah, well, don't edit this out. That's the best part. I won't. But I was like, why the hell did I do that? And she's laughing. She's like, they're just human. They're the sweetest people you'll ever meet. Just don't worry about it. And I'm like, she's on the cover of a damn book.
Oh, yeah. I was like, but I'm one of the cool. Hey, I'm just as shocked as you were. Trust me. I still am. I'm like, it's just mind blowing. But I'm very appreciative and very humble. My father reminds me daily that I best be humble.
Yeah. You don't want that to go away.
No.
So I'm going to jump into the music here just a little bit. Tell me about, first off, this video is adorable. I just throw
Which one?
Anybody who's listening to this, I'm going to need you to go YouTube this. I'm going to drop it in the descriptions. The COVID Hustle. I love how Dolly Parton chick cut out. I think it was Dolly. It was
it's Dolly.
But it's behind you guys I can't. Okay, so I loved it.
Hey, by the way, I own that bus. That's my bus. I call her Tawanda. She's a 73 Volkswagen camper bus. I don't know, Nick. I'm gonna let you start that one.
Yeah. So that was, I would say, that's one of the few songs that I've ever written where it was like, let's write a song about XYZ. You know what I mean? I mean, you have feelings or vibes or emotions, or maybe you write a breakup song or something like that. But those are feelings. And so Jen and I, we had actually been working on writing together for a while. I think we had the track to that song for months, probably a year before we came up with that song. And we kept coming back to that. We're like, we need to use that track for something. And then we both just agreed. We're like, let's write a song about, what everyone is going through, which was the pandemic. And and then we just kind of incubated on it. We sat together, had some writing sessions, and we just kind of sat and free wrote, and we listened to the track and we sang different things. And, then we kind of refined it down to a song. But one of the main things that we wanted to do, we didn't want to make it like a really tragic track, which obviously about something so serious it could have been. And technically in the song, I am expressing a little bit of anxiety about the elders in my family who are at risk. But I do it in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way. And, it's a little more comedic. But, I have genuine anxiety that someone who is older in my family could, contract an illness that they might pass away. But we wanted to make it something that was uplifting. So, there was a cool paradox there, and I think it's really unique. And I'm really glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Listening.
My daughter doesn't come out of her room. She's like 15. She comes out to like get a hug and get a snack. Like, that's it. She kind of went, and I was like, yeah, then it's good.
Can I talk about that track and my memories of it?
Uh-huh.
Well, I remember, of course, when COVID, we had been playing Chill Bar Highlands as a residency almost like once a month. And the last gig we had was right before St. Patrick's Day. And literally the next day, everything shut down. We were even slightly nervous about playing that last gig, I remember. I go back to the country. Nick is in Louisville. We've had that track, the music to the track for a long time. And every time we would go back to it, it would make us dance. And I was like, man, we need to use that dance track for something, And I remember us having a conversation about, hey, let's write what we're dealing with, And then I would come to Louisville and stay and spend the night with Nick for like 3 or 4 days. And we would just like just try to get stuff done while I was there. And it seemed like this was over a 2-day period. So we go back, we agree we're going to use that track, and then he mentions, everybody's real down and out right now. It's real gloom and doom 2020. We're in a pandemic. Nobody can go out. Everything's shut down. Let's try to, like, uplift people. And then we're like, oh, we got that dance track, right?
Yeah, and then we came up with line dance,
Yeah.
And one of our friends was kind of hanging out at that time, and he has a really funny sense of humor. And he said, if it's going to be a line dance, you have to shout at people and tell them what to do. So that just sparked us both. We both started coming up with all kinds of stuff.
Wash your hands. Sing happy birthday. Don't touch your face. It was just, it was. And then we had one day to film the video, and everything was shut down at the time. And I was like, well, I got this awesome bus. And then Nick was like, well, let's just go downtown to all these Louisville landmark locations. He had the idea of doing it with the bridge in the background and also with the Louisville Slugger bat. And then we just went crazy one day and had a real good time and just got to wind up
the
with
few
Dolly
people
in there.
the few people who were downtown were all looking at us like, what the hell are these people doing?
Yeah, and by the way, we didn't really have the dance part of it.
You were just making it up.
Words. We literally were making it up as we were filming it, and it got better and better every time we did it. Yeah.
It's really fun to perform live too.
It is.
Now,
it is.
We've had a couple gigs since the pandemic, some outdoor stuff and stuff like that, where we've gotten to perform that. And it was just so fun. It has such a fun energy. And afterwards, people were like, I love that song. That was one of my favorite ones that you guys did,
And, go ahead.
No, I was
going to say,
it's so fun.
It is. And another thing that to go along with what Nick is saying is that it was one of the first ones that live challenged us to figure out how do we perform this live, because we had overdubbed all these vocals and it was an electronic track. So basically I went back and we took the track and left all the backing vocals in a lot of some of these that were, that we did, and performed them live to a track so that we could have a track plan. Then we play live over top of it. Then we leave the main vocals out and do the main vocals, but you still have a lot of the shouty stuff in the background. So that gave us a whole different perspective of how are we going to do this live. And when we did it live and was like, oh, we can do this, then it added a whole nother element of fun. And then we could actually do the line dance while we're shouting at people what to do.
Yeah.
You are now tuned in to the Kentucky Beatniks live from Louisville, Kentucky, yo. And we got a new dance for you, and it's real easy to do, and some of the moves you already knew. So get up off your couch and shake your boom boom.
He's coming to your town. He wants to take your mama down. is coming to your town. It wants to take your mom down.
Wash your hands, sing happy birthday, and don't touch your face. I don't hug, I namaste, 6 feet back, ring your bell every day. Vitamin C, Kentucky proud is how we say.
Ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary peoples near and far, we are now broadcasting Third Planet from the Star.
And asexuals and transsexuals and country folk alike, we are gathered here on another dimension, a higher vibration, one filled with love and light.
The drinks at Teddy Bears and chill bar karaoke.
Oh yeah.
I miss the split with all my friends and getting things real smoky.
Wash your hands, sing happy birthday, and don't touch your face. I don't hug, I namaste, 6 feet back, ring your bell every day. Vitamin C, Kentucky proud is how we say.
He's coming to your town. He wants to take your mama down. He's coming to your town. He wants to take your mama down. He's coming to your town. He wants to take your mama down. He's coming to your town. He wants to take your mama down.
Wash your hands, sing happy birthday, and don't touch your face. I don't hug, I namaste, 6 feet back, ring your bell every day. Vitamin C, Kentucky proud is how we stay. Wash your hands, sing happy birthday, and don't touch your face. I don't hug, I namaste, 6 feet back, ring your bell every day. Vitamin C, Kentucky proud is how we say. Namaste at home.
Jen
Truly.
is an amazing live drummer,
Yes.
but she also has this great extensive knowledge of production and creating tracks electronically, programming, drum machines and things like that. So we've had, that was something that probably for 10 years before I played with Jen, I would be out playing music by myself. And internally, I had this longing that I wanted to work with another artist who could help me create that type of soundscape where you have, you're playing live music, you're playing it from your heart, you're playing an acoustic instrument, but you have this awesome drum loop or something in the background, or you have programmed some harmony vocals or something like that, and you're getting to sing over that. And it just enriches it and creates such a cool soundscape that I was never able to really accomplish on my own. So that's been another blessing of working with Jen. And, it wasn't only the COVID hustle, but we did that with Holy Wine. And, we've worked on some other things where we programmed sounds, and then we were able to use that in a live format till we were still playing our organic, acoustic instruments, using our voices very organically. But then you have this other awesome layer. And especially if you're playing a set, sometimes some of our shows are like 3 hours long.
Oh, wow.
So it really enriches it to have these different soundscapes. We're playing one thing that maybe sounds really, really typically Americana or country. And then before you know it, we've got these like beats that we've programmed, and there's harmony vocals in the background, and Jen's rapping and playing drums, and there's piano on the track that's recorded, and then I'm playing the guitar, and it sounds like we have a freaking orchestra, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit too, because I was always an electronic geek, I loved hip hop, everything pretty much from the inception of hip hop has been with electronics. And I was getting out of Louisville and, seeing these artists that were amazing. I remember specifically when I first saw Ty Herndon. I mean, he had 4 people in his band, and it sounded like an orchestra. Mm-hmm. And I was watching him, and I would be like, he's playing that to a track, And you would not be, you would be surprised at how many artists that play instruments are scared to death of that, and don't want to go anywhere near it. So that's one thing I loved about Nick, is he was really open-minded to, hey, what if I took this track and left all these background harmonies, and you sing your main vocal, and then boom, you're harmonizing with yourself, and we sound like, a 20-piece band when we're 2 people. And he was willing to go there and do it live. Doing it behind the scenes and recording is one thing, but to do it live is a whole nother animal. Anything could go wrong,
Yeah.
So, another thing is, when I was coming back to Louisville, there was hardly anybody in Louisville doing that, which I had seen it in LA and New York and Chicago and Mishfest and all these other places. And, and that, I was like, that's been going on since the 80s. So it's just a lot of people, you've got to know how to do it. So Nick was fortunate for me, open-minded enough to let us try it. And then, and then we do it again coming up when we put out the Revolution Don't Come for Free.
Yeah. And I think a really beautiful fusion occurs with Jen and I, because we do both have really strong influences from hip hop. But I've always been, personally, I've been a little wary of that. I can rap. I mean, I know like every word to basically, at least like probably 5 Outkast albums. I could probably rap. I can rap every word to like the Fugees, The Score, like all my favorite hip hop albums. I was raised on that. And it was at a time in my life when I was going through some really dark times, and it was giving me a lot of strength, and it was giving me a lot of confidence to hear those words and be fortified by those words. But I did, I consider myself, for lack of a better word, I try to be a woke person, for lack of a better terminology. I try to stand for social justice and things like that. And I was wary, I never wanted to be this cheesy white guy who's up there trying to rap. I just didn't want to be that. But something really beautiful that happens when Jen and I are performing together, we create something totally different that's totally our own. So even if we are covering Salt and Peppa, or we do like Lauryn Hill, doo-wop, that thing, but we really do our own thing with it. It's not just some cheesy white guy up there trying to sound like a rapper. We're drawing from music that has deeply, that we're deeply passionate about, and that has really set our soul on fire. But we're doing it in a way that's really authentic and true from our own hearts. So as not to just, appropriate or become this really corny copy of something that, I'm never going to be as good as Lauryn Hill, but I can be so beautifully influenced by her passion that, that can feed my performance, and I can, then take that and run with it. So I'm blessed to work with Jen in that regard.
And I want to say same, because I am the exact same way. We're so similar, me and Nick, in many ways. I was heavily influenced by hip hop, even though I was playing rock and roll most of my life. Like, I was the Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, like, let's rock it out, and play as loud as possible, and Zeppelin influence and all that. But my true love was all this hip hop that I was jamming out to, Lil' Kim, and just all these amazing female like hip hop artists into rap, and, the Tupac Biggie phase. And I, again, just like Nick, I didn't want to be like, I want to be a rapper, and a white girl rapping, and I don't want people to make fun of me. But at the same time, I never excelled at vocals. I never worked on my vocals. I was always like a side player that just played drums with everybody else and could play a little bit of other instruments, but drums was my forte. So, that just started coming out naturally. I started doing a solo project, and thank God I was surrounded by all these amazing vocalists like Nick and like Beverly McClellan and Renee Jansky that I did a record with that was a vocal instructor. And they all were telling me, you've got this great vocal. I had done radio since I was 16 years old professionally. Everybody my whole life has says, you have this amazing voice. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't sing. So the one thing that I could do was the hip hoppy stuff, which is just naturally happened. And with Nick, thank God, he's very similar to me, and I just go with what he throws at me, and I have been able to grow, I feel like, a lot more with an artist like Nick, because he does excel at vocals, and he does have this soul hip hop flair to him that I love in an artist, so it's made me grow as an artist, just getting to work with him from that perspective.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys really complement each other in just the right way. And I there's a lot of musicians out there who look for that forever, and they can never quite. You are so blessed.
Yeah.
So blessed.
I know
too.
So tell me about, speaking of blessed, tell me about Holy Wine.
Yeah. Jen, do you want to start?
I'm like, well, where do we start with that one? That was one of the first that we really tried to write to electronics. Nick, I'm not for sure, you may have to remind me, but I remember Nick sitting at a piano. He was playing this beautiful kind of thing. I'm not even for sure where it came from, but it just naturally, really organically happened. I remember,
Yeah. Jen had pointed out, we had just been having conversations about performance, as a mode of spiritual experience.
That's
and
right.
How when you are performing, church happens, and it doesn't matter if you're an atheist or if you're Hindu or if you were raised like me in the Pentecostal church, or it doesn't matter what your spiritual background is. I think there's a very undeniable fire that ignites when soul is tapped into and the music is pouring from that place. And, we had been speaking about different artists who we admired, particularly people who we've worked with, like the Troubadours of Divine Bliss, and various people who it's very evident from the moment that they begin to sing that there is what we termed an anointing. There's a special complexity of the spirit that the music is just a vehicle for.
Yeah.
And so that is what we started writing from, was that place of understanding that performance and music are a spiritual experience. And when we are opening ourselves to be a conduit for this ethereal form of music, I mean, music is a mystery. We have science to music. You can measure things and the time signatures, and you can measure words and pentameters and different things like that. But those things don't capture the essence of the power of music. The power of music is ethereal, it's otherworldly, it's a mystery, it's an unknown. So that was where we started writing that piece from, was, writing just kind of about things that were going on in our life. I have been struggling with a very tragic breakup, and my heart was broken for years. I mean, it was like I was crying every day over it. And I cried for so long over it. I couldn't write. I didn't write poetry. I would perform, but it was like I sort of stayed away from touching that emotion too much because it was too sensitive for me.
Right.
And so that song gave me a way of confronting that in a, you know, in kind of like in the church of music, you know, I got to take it to the altar of music and say, you know, deliver me from these feelings and heal this brokenness that I'm feeling. But you know, I think that that's the best way that I can summarize what that song meant to me, and where I was writing from when we came up with that was, you know, it was kind of like our queer, non-religious way of being conduits for the Holy Ghost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by the way, I love the hook of the lyrics of that that Nick had come up with, and not only that, I do remember us talking about artists being anointed, and for me, an artist that is anointed is someone like the troubadours, like Nick already said, who basically heal through their music. When I hear them, it makes me feel very spiritual, and I feel like they heal something in my soul. And I, at the same time that we were writing that song, had just come out of multiple heartbreaks back to back. You know, I was heartbroken, exactly like Nick, very crying behind the scenes every day and not understanding how to express it. And I'm working with Nick, who's an amazing artist, who is very emotional as an artist and knows how to expose that through his music. And I was like, you know, it opened a platform for me he would write a verse and then he'd throw it at me and say, no, you write your verse here and you come in here. And then I'd be like, oh, sweet. And so I wrote the little rap about my heartbreak, you know, and tried to make it kind of mimic his. And what's ironic is, you know, I've had people ask, are y'all singing to each other? Which is funny. I never thought about it that way, but when you go back and listen to it, it does from the listener perspective go, you know, and everybody's perspective is different because music is, you know, it's special between the listener and the writer. Everybody has their own unique experiences when they listen to a song. It's a very personal experience, songwriting, you know. And so you could ask one person what they got out of it, and it's going to be something totally different than we wrote about, and vice versa. But yeah, I remember loving that I actually had a platform, and it helped me heal a little bit through writing that. I use writing music for me and me and Nick are so different in this way. To me, when I write music, I usually write out of anger. Of course, music is supposed to capture emotion.
Correct.
And I usually write out of heartbreak and anger. And everybody, when they meet me, you know, if I date them, they're always like, oh, you're a songwriter, write me a song. And I'm like, you don't want that because because I usually write after the breakup. And then they're like, no, I don't want the song anymore, right? But music, to me, I use it as a healing therapy for myself. I write my frustrations and heartbreak into music. And then once I do that and I release it, I feel like it's gone. It's released from me. So from my perspective, a lot of times, you know, that hip hoppy kind of stuff comes out more Eminem. I'm not comparing myself to him, but Eminem has this more darker, like angry,
yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you know, where I was going with that. And I didn't realize that maybe.
But that's an anointing. That's an anointing in itself, you know, and it's a therapy. And when you allow that to flow through you, that can heal and help heal people as well who are going through the same thing. But I think as I, you know, just kind of sit here and reflect on all the different songs that I've written solo and the songs that Jen and I have written together, even the more fun stuff like the COVID Hustle, there are so many elements to it that are my own prayer. They're my own way of connecting to the mystery, whatever that is. You know, I'm not about organized religion. I was rejected and scorned by that. I grew up singing and playing piano and you know, being a part of music in the church. And I was essentially excommunicated from that station for being gay. And I've been rejected so many times by that it led me to find my own way of doing that. But, you know, you can sit alone in a forest and just sing to the life force that exists within all things. And it's a spiritual experience. You're singing a hymn and it doesn't, follow any dogma or any religion. But I think that comes up a whole lot for me in writing songs. And I've written a few songs over the past couple weeks, and it just always recurs. It just comes through that part of my heart and that part of my soul that wants to connect with the great divine mystery. It tends to manifest in my songwriting.
Holy wine is falling down on me.
Laying in the bed, 3:30 in the morning, you're running through me infrared. I don't know why it gets to my heart so strong, all them holy loving words you said. Subterranean, we were in the roots, growing up, moving through the trees. There can never be another you and me. Baby, there can never be another you and me. I get sentimental in the minor keys. There can never be another one for me.
Dreaming in my bed, it's 4:30 in the morning, and you're moaning in my head. I don't give a damn about the blood that was shed or the motherfucking words they said. Subconsciously, it's slipping into me. Unlock my entry with your key. There will never be another you and me. There will never be another you and me. And I get sentimental in the minor keys. There will never be another one for me.
Holy wine is falling down on me.
I love
Holy
playing with
wine.
Nick because of
Yeah,
that reason too. I mean,
Holy wine was definitely that for me. It's mine and Jen's flow. It's got some hip hop. We got the track going. When we jam it live, there's some drums. We can move to it. I remember we were one of the only bands to ever get to play on the stage where the drag performances take place at Play. So we got to be the band who got to play on that stage.
It's awesome.
And there was a lot of anxiety because we decided to open our show with that song Holy Wine. And that's a strange song. I mean, I have no problem dubbing it as such. A lot of my most favorite music, the artists that I look up to the most, Tori Amos, Outkast, Bjork, Radiohead, all of these artists are very strange. What they do is very weird. They don't sound like anyone else. And if they're presented to an audience who are not familiar with them, you're going to get some quixotic type responses. People are kind of like, whoa, what the hell is happening here? And I felt that happen because we're performing at Play as like a fundraiser for Kentuckiana Pride, and it was just this big old group of gay people, and we're up there channeling this kind of like shamanic energy in this weird little rap song about heartbreak. And so yeah, I mean, it's very strange, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That's what I love to do.
I love that it's strange. I think it's my favorite one out of the three that Jen said.
Oh,
thank you.
I love that. I've yet to hear that. It's I will say too, from a production standpoint, we were just starting to work together at that point, and neither one of us, I don't think, had vocalized to each other that we're tormented by all this heartbreak, in the community and whatnot. But from a production standpoint, I remember we only had like one little microphone, and it wasn't even a great microphone. We put it in a room, and we filmed it right there where he's right in Nick's apartment.
Yeah,
he's got a piano there.
I'm playing my out of tune piano. But that gives it a richness,
It does, so it works.
It does,
well.
I know.
It's like you did
and
it
at
on
the
purpose.
end,
yeah,
I know. And at one of my favorite things that sounds like we did on purpose in the production part of it, at the very end, where after he just goes to the piano part, you can hear the clump, 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 clump on the piano, the staccato, you can hear
the hammering,
the hammering of the keys, and it's literally, we didn't mean for it to be like that, but it just gave it another haunting aspect, you know? Yeah.
Heartbreak.
I'm glad you liked it.
I do. I really understood that song. I had a rough end of 2019, and I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, so did we. I know I did.
So, and the last song you sent me has a great lyric in it, but I'll get back to that. The revolution.
I got cultural.
The revolution don't come for free. Let's talk about that.
More of a serious one. Nick, I'm gonna let you start.
So actually, I wrote the majority. So Jen did write some of the lyrics to that, but the majority of the lyrics came from poetry that I was writing downtown while attending protests. And I was very active in attending protests pretty much daily through much of, last summer and into the fall. And, some things happened and life flows different ways. And I started feeling calling to take my activism sort of in different directions. So, I hadn't, there came a point where I wasn't attending as frequently. But I did write that just sitting down at the protests and soaking things in and having so many feelings that I didn't know how to express. And I mean, there were pages and pages and pages of poetry in that song. But what we sort of did was just fortified and took, we kind of, what we wanted to do was to simplify and not make it too convoluted. And, something that is a cornerstone of protest movements. And I've been involved with protesting and dissent movements since I was probably 19, 20 years old. So, it's going on 20 years of my life. I've been a part of that. And something that is really a big part of it is chants, and someone says something and then the crowd says something, and then someone says something and then the crowd says something. But also that shows up in spirituality. It shows up in church. It shows up in praise and worship. And I'm also hugely in love with the yogic tradition of bhakti, which is kirtan, where you say, Om Namah Shivaya, and then everyone chants Om Namah Shivaya. So you have these chants, these call and response chants, and it fortifies us, it energizes us, and it gets everyone in one mind, in one accord. And so what we did was just kind of took my poetry and we boiled some of those lines down till we could create a call and response chant kind of feeling. And then, of course, Jen had creative input and wrote some lines that she wanted to put in there. And we just created essentially something that could be a meditation about revolution, and revolution, not just politically, not just on a social justice scale, but a revolution of the soul, a revolution of the self, understanding and realizing that we all have a daily opportunity to transform ourselves, to recognize things about ourselves that don't entirely match up with authentically who we are inside of our hearts, and realizing, I've been taught this, or this phrase has been passed on to me through generations of conditioning, but I'm not going to use that phrase anymore because that does not reflect my heart. That does not reflect who I am as a person. And so that's what that song was about for me. It was just a call for everyone to say the words along with us. So if you listen to it, that song gets a little bit long, but I didn't want to care. I didn't want to care about the length of the song. I wanted it to be effective in the way that we say a line, and I want the listener or the audience to, even if they don't vocalize it, I want them to echo it, and I want them to say the line in their mind so that they are having a similar experience to what I'm experiencing. But probably the most potent thing that came through that for me was realizing the hereditary element of so much bigotry through my bloodline and my family, and being raised Christian and being taught, we don't treat people differently and we don't treat people unkind, but then having this really ingrained bigotry and racism and xenophobia and homophobia and all these types of things.
That's why I don't talk to half my family. I get it. That's why there was that line. Oh, I'm going to butcher it. I'm going to butcher it because I'm thinking too hard about
like
it.
Like racism on our family tree.
The blood. Yes. Like on the
like
family
blood
tree.
running down the leaves like racism on our family tree. And then blood running down the streets like racism.
It literally stopped me in my tracks, because half the time when I listen to the music, I'm like, I'm paying attention, I'm taking notes, but I also have a kid. And that line, that hit me somewhere, because it's been really hard, but after, and I do not talk politics on the show. I'm very honest about that, because I don't want to cut other people off from learning something or gaining something. But like my mother, my father, and my grandmother and my aunt are the most open-minded, liberal, loving people, even though my grandma would say she wasn't, but she was. But then there's some other people in my family that don't even know the truth about me or my daughter. So when I heard that line, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be the last song I talk about, because I want people to really think about that line before they listen to the song, because that's true, especially in this area rural areas of the United States. You know, they're trying hard to progress, they're trying to learn, but it is so deeply ingrained sometimes that it's toxic.
Yeah. I was weeping when I wrote that. I mean, literally, when I wrote that poetry, that was a part of a whole, actually, the poem started out writing about, I was sitting there and I was overhearing this loud music playing, and it was R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. And I was thinking, hey, people rock that song.
Yes.
You know, but how many white people are just totally oblivious to the struggle that Black Americans face. And so, you know, there was that whole line in there, and that blood running down the leaves and blood running down the streets like racism on our family tree, that came from that poem. And I mean, I was weeping when I wrote that, but something that so deeply has occurred to me through, you know, this, what we're seeing is just an exposing of wounds. These are things that have been there for so long, but social media and different movements and various conversations are shedding light on these things. People don't understand just how to admit that, you know, that is a part of our history. I mean, there are literally people in my family who will straight up deny, no, we're not racist. No, that's not ever been a part of who we are, you know, all this kind of thing. And that's just not factual. You know, it is a part of who we are. It's a part of who we've been raised to be. And denying it is doing ourselves a disservice, because we're failing to grow by not admitting it, you know? Yeah, Jen, will you speak on that for a moment?
Yeah, I would love to, because
I can see her.
I'm just Nick is such a great speaker. And
he really is.
Yeah. So basically, what I remember from that track is we were in the middle of 2020 COVID, the Breonna Taylor case was going on. I'm struggling with my health. I'm in the country watching Nick's social media and him go to these protests, wishing I could be there, but physically I just couldn't chance it. Because I could barely walk, and I was trying to figure out, if you don't know, listeners, I'm, you know, recovering from a spinal cord injury where I was almost nearly paralyzed for life. And I am week almost 11 now of having an operation, 3 of my discs taken out and a metal cage put in my neck. So during all this time, I had not discovered that I was nearly paralyzed when we were, you know, when I would come up to visit Nick and he's presenting this to me. But I've been watching him go to all the protests, wishing I could be there and, you know, have a voice as well. And also, I had worked in the news department for many years. I worked in media from 16 till 30. And by the time I left, I was carrying a pager from the morgue on my side covering all the murders in Louisville. Yeah. So I literally left that because it was just not good for my mental. So I was very thankful that I didn't have to cover that case. But I was very familiar with LMPD and everything going on. So when he presented, hey, I got this poetry, and he literally had a bunch of different stuff. And then we were like, oh yeah, let's do this. And he had the idea to, hey, he's got all this protest footage. Let's make this video and this song about this. And I was really excited to do that. And just like you, when I read and heard him say that line about, you know, like blood running down the leaves or blood running down the street, like racism on our family tree. I think
I was even crying when I read it to Jen, you know, before we made it into a song. But another important element of that song, and you know, it might not be everyone's favorite, but we're channeling some divine energy in there, and there is a moment where we're chanting some kirtan. It's Sanskrit mantra that we're chanting various ancient names of God. And to some people it might be like, wait, I thought this was a song about, you know, like social justice, or like, where is this coming from? But to me, it was really important that there was an element of healing in there. Our chants don't our chants don't all have to be, blood running down the streets. I mean, that's a very visceral and a very important point to make, but we need to remember to take time to chant, to connect to whatever divine source it is. And, as I said before, I would hope that it would apply to everyone, even an atheist. There is just this divine energy, call it nature, call it the universe, whatever it is, but it is healing. And when we tap into it and we channel that, then we start to understand things in a more compassionate way. We start to understand how to forgive the wrongdoings and the ignorance that those in our past have exhibited, that we ourselves have exhibited. There was a time in my life where I had an elder Black teacher who had to take me to the side and tell me, honey, it is not okay for you to say this, or it is not okay for you to say that, and we have to be willing to tap into that healing space of saying, there is all this violence, there is all this tragedy, but we can take this moment of realization and use it to vibrate ourselves higher.
Blue sky, where have you gone? Where have you gone? It's raining on my people and it looks like they gonna drown. Drowning down here. You kill the prophets and those said to you. Free all of my people, 'cause you won't be holding us down. Revolution don't come for free. The 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 revolution don't come for free. We have a duty to be free. We have a duty to be free. Go be the change that you want to see. Go be the change that you want to see. We have a duty to be free. We have a duty to be free. Go be the change that you want to see. Go be the change that you want to see. You can't lock us up for speaking of peace. You can't lock us up for speaking of peace. In the morning we shall be free. In the morning we shall be free. You can't lock us up for speaking of peace. You can't lock us up for speaking of peace. In the morning we shall be free. In the morning we shall be free. Revolution don't come for free. The 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 revolution don't come for free. Blood running down the leaves. Blood running down the leaves. Like racism on our family tree. Like racism on our family tree. Blood running down the streets. Blood running down the streets. Like racism on our family tree. Like racism on our family tree. Yeah. The change is coming over me. Sing it. Change is coming over me. One love in humanity. One love in humanity. The change is coming over me. A change is coming over me. One love in humanity. One love in humanity. Hands up, hands up. Speak out, speak out. Show up, show up. Live proud, live proud. Hands up, hands up. Speak out, speak out. Show up, show up. Live proud, live
Hare Govinda Jaya, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Hare Rama. No justice, no peace. You are the light for the world to see. No justice, no peace. You are the light for the world to see. No justice, no peace. You are the light for the world to see. No justice, no peace. You are the light for the world to see. Free, set my people free. Yeah. Free. We're in the cage, but we hold the key. Free, set my people free. Yeah. Free. We're in the cage, but we hold the key.
This is one I like to make sure I ask everybody. What advice would you give someone who wants to get into music?
Okay.
Either
Well,
one.
I'm a music teacher of 14 years and mostly age 5 and up. So that's what I do professionally. I teach. By the way, I'm going to give a shameless plug. GenerationStudios.com. If you have kids, I've been a music teacher for a long time, and I will I've now moved that to online since COVID. So if you've got kids, hit me up. I'm on a sliding scale, so everybody can take on their financial, whatever they can throw and whatnot. So I love teaching music, and I love it when the young ones get in because, you're never going to regret playing an instrument later on in life. Never. You're never going to know everything there is to know about music because it's so vast. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to tell anybody anything, I would say play a musical instrument, learn to sing because I always say this, if these kids out here that were having to deal with these school shootings and were so frustrated with their daily lives or their home lives would just have a creative outlet to be able to express their frustrations or express their emotions like we talked about earlier, then the world would be a much better place. A lot of times we find that we've got all these emotions trapped inside and kids and adults don't know how to get that out properly. Well, music and art is the perfect platform for that.
Yes.
So anytime someone can be an artist, I highly encourage them to do that and just to keep doing it. And I have begun to use a while back, I found out that what I was doing was really therapy. It's expressive therapy, teaching therapy through music, and healing people through music. And again, we talked about that in Holy Wine with the anointed artists and stuff. There's nothing that you're going to regret literally about learning music and to play an instrument or anything. So I would just say get involved and do it as much as you can, whether it's a side project or it's something that just calms your mind when you come home. And a lot of people don't know how to be by themselves, and just be in a space of quiet because we're so busy with all this, stuff going on every day with online, and we got phones now, and just, you take a phone away from somebody and put them in a dark room and they're going to go crazy probably, but not if they have art and they have some way to express, or they can write it, or they can sing, or they can play an instrument, or they can paint, So my advice would be to do it. First and foremost, believe in yourself, be original and true to yourself, and just do it as much as possible. That's my take on it.
Yes, I totally agree with that, Jen. And the practice is important. Giving yourself time to do it every day. If it's not every day, every week, however often you can give yourself time to do it, but you do have to leave space in your life for it to happen. You can't say, oh, I want to be a singer, or I used to have this practice of shoulding, like I should do this. Oh, I should write a song about that. Oh, I should record myself singing this. But I was shoulding on a shelf because I was shoulding in my head, but I was not giving myself time to do it. So, in connection with what Jen is saying there, giving yourself time to do it. But I'm fortunate that, I get to teach students. Sometimes I've taught voice, I've taught piano, I've taught guitar, and by no means am I trained. But I have, helped some young people along their path, I think. And one of the primary things that I always impart when I have a lesson with a student, and something that I would advise anyone who's interested in being a performer or a singer or an instrumentalist, is the word play, and what that word means: to be playful, to not, when a kid plays, if you have some Legos, or if you have finger paints, or if you have on a cape and you're out in the yard pretending to be a superhero, there aren't bounds or limits on that. You're not really concerned what people are going to think about you or how they're going to interpret it. So I think that creatively, we have to give ourselves license to play. And it just so happens that that word very literally corresponds with music. Playing music is a very literal thing, but remembering to put that element of play into what we do, and not making everything such a discipline, or such a, for me, there have been years past. I mean, if we had gone back 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would not have been brave enough to record the songs with Jen that we've recorded, saying the things that I've said. I would not have been brave enough to create these videos and put them out on YouTube. And I mean, I realize that like every single person I know is not seeing this. But some people I know are seeing it. And there used to be a lot of instilled shame in me. I used to have a lot of deep anxiety about, people who would not approve of some form of what I was doing with my art. And, my perspective in that wasn't so much that I was feeding into the shame aspect, but I thought, I want my music to reach those people, and I want my music to touch those people too. So, just my evangelical family, for example, it was like I was cautious, like, oh, I don't want to create something that might alienate them and that they wouldn't be able to feel the effects of, what I'm trying to get across. But in the end, you just have to let go and play and just do what you do. You know what I mean? And you'll find yourself, I mean, write crappy songs. It doesn't matter. Write a crappy song, write
100%.
5 crappy songs. The next one might be amazing, So we can't be afraid to fail. We can't be afraid of what people are going to think. And we can't be afraid to be playful and to just allow ourselves to explore our imagination and explore all the different inspirations that come to us. And, just circling back to Jen's point and ending on the point of making yourself open, making yourself available, putting up that antenna for the muses to be able to communicate with you and to breathe that inspiration into you. That takes some time. I love binge watching TV. I love, doing various things in my life that don't have to do with music. But if I want music to come through me, then I have to make space for that to happen. And I have to create a time for practice,
right?
So that those things can occur. So
Action.
That would be my
Action.
advice.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And the last thing, any shows coming up? I know we're at the what I hope is the end of COVID with vaccines.
Right.
I can't take it anymore. But are there any live shows coming up that you guys are doing? Or anything?
We're
Not-
not booked.
Not for the public.
I
Okay.
think that our next aspiration, and I think Jen would probably agree with me on this, in the near future, we are going to get some time to get together and have, some creative space together. And that will likely manifest virtually. Watch for us to be releasing new songs that we've written together, music videos, or, we like to do a lot of like living room type performances where we're just jamming and then we just turn on the camera and we catch it. And, those are performances in themselves.
I actually love to do the virtual performances. You know what I mean? Because they're so authentic, and it opens up your audience from not just being local 50 people that go to a bar to being millions and billions of, billions of people.
Yeah. And if it's on YouTube, then it stays there forever. And who knows, like my nephew's grandchildren might watch it one day or something.
I know,
right, exactly.
Thank God for it, though, because I don't know how musicians would have gotten through this without all these options.
I don't know how I would have gotten through it as a fan without my favorite musicians releasing things virtually.
It's been rough.
Whew. Yeah, and can I just say this? One amazing thing to come out of this is that it put all musicians and artists on the same playing field.
There's no more...
They're not on tour right now. Everybody's sitting at home in their living room trying to figure out how do we do this. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it put me and Nick on a platform with Beyonce, it was we'll never be Beyonce, but you know what I'm saying? It is a levelizer for artistry because we all are dealing with the pandemic, and how do we deal with this? Well, we either create and make music videos and music for people to buy, or we sit in our living room and make some kind of show out of it. There's no other way to get through it. So hopefully one day we'll get to play, in front of people again. But honestly, I have loved it. I think most true artists, the best work always comes out of seclusion. Always. Look at Anne Frank's diary. Famous things that were written. Look at these songs that were written when people were secluded.
That we got after the Black Plague. I mean, just painting after painting after painting.
They're
all fat chicks eating on a couch, which I am totally okay with.
Me too.
That's me.
By the way, I love this quote, after the Renaissance, or after the plague came the Renaissance. And it's true. So stay tuned. You're going to see an explosion of music and art coming out this year, I guarantee it.
Alrighty, everybody, that was episode 26 of Sound Pollution with the Kentucky Beatniks. If you like what you heard from Nick and Jen, please make sure that you follow and support them in all the links I have provided below in the description section. Another shout out to my first VIP patron, Kathleen. For more information about Sound Pollution, please go to my website, which is soundpollutionpodcast.com. Follow us on social media, and make sure that you please follow, like, subscribe, and share to Sound Pollution on any of the listening platforms you are using. And be kind and make some noise.